Hello, and welcome back to Assistant Elections. In his first presidential campaign event since the start of July, Robert Kennedy Jr. has officially suspended his campaign and endorsed former President Trump for the presidency. Now, there are murmurings of this happening since the start of the week. His vice presidential candidate, Shanahan, went on various news networks during the DNC, criticizing the DNC and essentially opening up the question of whether RFK would suspend his campaign and whether he would endorse Donald Trump. Now, yesterday, he submitted paperwork to remove his name from Arizona. And today, just before his event in Phoenix, Arizona, where he announced this officially, his campaign submitted paperwork to not only withdraw his name from the Pennsylvania ballot, but to also endorse Trump officially. Now, this is what this Politico news article states. And in his campaign event, which officialized everything that has been rumored over the last couple of days, he was very critical of the DNC. He was talking about how Kamala Harris was parachuted in following President Biden's poor debate performance at the end of June. And essentially, he was very critical of the Democrats. Of course, he used to be a former Democrat. He was ostracized and distanced himself from the party in the last decade or so. And essentially, he endorsed Trump. Now, you can argue many reasons why he endorsed Trump, but to say it as it is, he clearly has had a cabinet or a high-ranking administration position offer from the Trump campaign. There was rumors only last week that he was trying to uh, talk to the Kamala Harris campaign as well to look at his options of a possible cabinet or administration position if he dropped out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, RFK Jr. clearly was flailing in the polls, and the fact that he has dropped out is not really a surprise, but I would say it is a bit earlier than I would have expected. But I want to quickly look at his favorability. Now, this starts this is the 538 polling average of his favorability. When he first entered the race, he was polling as high as 47% average of favorability rating, with a 25-point distance between his favorability and his unfavorability. But over the year, that quickly shortened. His unfavorability quickly rose. His favorability dropped. And just about the middle of April, the switch sides. His unfavorability rose to about low 40s and his favorability in the mid 30s. Now, essentially, that went hand in hand with the drop in polling. When President Biden and Donald Trump were the two presumptive candidates, Robert F. Kennedy was doing exceptionally well polling. He was polling as high as 25% in certain polls, but on average, he was polling in the mid teens, around 15%. But ever since Kamala Harris joined the fray, his polling numbers have tanked. Now, this was a trend happening just before that. During the month of July, his polling numbers began to fall. But I just want to go on to the freeway polling averages of Kamala Harris, Trump, and RFK Jr. As you can see, throughout the entire month, since Kamala Harris became the presumptive nominee towards the end of July, RFK Jr. has pretty much stayed at 5 points, and he's slightly trended down, but essentially he has stayed there. He has not been gaining any new supporters. His campaign was clearly struggling. I believe the last report of the second quarter, they reported that they had about 4 million cash on hand, but about 3.5 million in debt. So essentially, his campaign was almost completely out of funds. His campaign had hit a standstill, and there was essentially no path to not even a successful spoiler at that point. At this point, he was pretty much only staying in the race for the reason of being able to use his candidacy as a tool to either sway the election in one side or another. And Kennedy clearly assessed both his options. Like I said, there have been rumors of him endorsing Kamala Harris only a week ago, but that avenue clearly showed no fruit for him. Now, there was talks over the last two or 3 days about what role Kennedy would like in the administration. There's a lot of talk about him being in the CIA director role, but at the end of the day, Trump still has to win for any of that to happen. But the question is, what does this actually mean? Is this going to help Trump? There is clearly polling data that shows this would help Trump. This was a Daily Mail article. Unfortunately, I can't find it on anything else, but it was a Daily Mail commissioned article in partnered with JLP Partners. Now, this pretty much polled RFK Jr. RFK Jr. voters or lean voters and said, if you did drop out, which Democrat or Republican candidate would you prefer to vote for? And this poll had 51% of RFK Jr. voters from the 7th to the 11th of August. 51% said that they would. There you go. 51% said they would likely lean or strongly support Trump if RFK Jr. did drop out, whereas only 26% said they would vote for Harris. Another 23% said they were not sure. Now, as I've made clear in my previous videos, I do think Kamala Harris's polling lead has come from a lot of double haters, the people who hated both Biden and Trump, switching to Kamala Harris from RFK Jr. over the past month. That is where I think a lot of the polling lead has come, because a lot of those RFK Jr. voters were pretty much just looking for a different Democratic candidate. And as you can see, and that is why I think the voting split in the RFK voters, say this only a month ago at the start of July, we'd have been seeing a lot more 50-50 split between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, or maybe a bit lower. You'd be just looking at 33% Trump, 33% Harris. But I believe a lot of those voters have already shifted back over to the Democratic Party. And in this case, this polling pretty much suggests that trend, and that a lot of the RFK Jr. voters were Donald Trump voters, or at least more inclined to vote for Trump than Kamala Harris. Now, I still think that, as you can see, that's still 50% of the people who voted for RFK Jr. either say they don't know or would be more inclined to vote for Harris. And that still possesses kind of a worry. But say that quarter of RFK voters decide not to vote in this election. They do not like Kamala Harris and they do not like Donald Trump. That still benefits Donald Trump massively over Kamala Harris. Now, of course, this is the only real poll that has come out about this. I can assure you in the next 5 days, we'll be getting a bit more polling data about more questions like this. But it suggests at the moment that Donald Trump is going to benefit very minimally from this dropout and the dropout and the endorsement. But I don't think, as you can see, 50%, I don't think those don't knows are going to be voting for Trump now all of a sudden just because RFK Jr. has endorsed him. I do think that 50% are more likely to go and vote for Trump now that he has endorsed. But a lot of the people who are voting for RFK Jr. were voting for the fact that he was an outsider. Trump is also an outsider. A lot of people were voting for RFK Jr. because of the name. The Kennedy family name still has an impressive ring and an impressive aura to it, one that really cannot be matched with any other political name in American politics. Now, I just want to go back and I just want to say that it is still very early days. This only happened about an hour or two ago, even though we had an idea that this was going to happen in the last 24, 36 hours. But we're gonna see in the polling data in the next week or two whether that moves the needle very much. I think nationally it's not going to move much of the needle, but in the swing states, only 1%, because I think this is going to be 1 or 2% in favor of Donald Trump when you take away the Harris voters, the new Harris voters following RFK Jr.'s dropout, and the new Trump voters following his dropout, and the people that don't intend to vote whatsoever. We're going to be seeing maybe a 1 or 2 point increase for Trump in the swing states. Now, that could be all it takes to swing certain states like Nevada, like Pennsylvania, like North Carolina, like Georgia, like Arizona. But it still needs to wait and see exactly what happens. But at the moment, this is clearly a positive for the Trump campaign and a much needed boost during a month where he had been getting a lot of negativity and stagnating polling numbers. Now, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content, and I'll see you all again very soon.